Hello everyone, I'm Landon and today I will be reviewing this 2002 Ford Mustang Mach-E, finished in this beautiful grabber blue. It is not a GT model, but it is a premium that makes 346 horsepower that it sends to the rear wheels. 346, that's a bit of a bump up from the base Mustang or the EcoBoost. Heck, it's even a bump up from my 3-valve GT back from whenever it was stock. But the difference is this torque, the instantaneous torque you get that makes this a whole different experience. More on that in a bit. Now I do think this color works quite well for this vehicle. One, because it's kind of a play with the whole electric blue that you might think of when you think of electricity or an electric vehicle. But two, I feel like it just follows the body lines of the car really, really well. Speaking of which, right here from the side silhouette, you can see a bit of that fastback design inspiration, reminiscent of the late 60s era Mustangs. Now speaking of body lines, you'll notice that they're not interrupted here on the side with door handles. So how do you get in the vehicle then if there's no door handles? Well, it's easy. You simply lean against the door until you absorb through it via osmosis. But if time's not on your side, you can also just press this little button right here, which will pop the door open, and then you can grab this little pull piece to gain access inside. It's a similar story here in the back, but you'll realize there is no pull piece. Instead, what the engineers found out through focus group studies is that everyone opted to just grab the side of the door when pulling it open, as I did myself the first time instinctively. You'll notice then on the interior portion of the door this rubber piece that adds a bit of comfort and convenience when trying to pull the door open. Another feature to note is once the door has been popped open, it cannot be immediately closed back, not without first opening it more fully and then giving it a close. The reason being is this small rod that's here that will prevent you from closing it. Now that's nice if you have a couple kids who have raced to get to the car door, or if you're carrying something or otherwise just bump into the door. You're not going to smash your fingers in an area where you are encouraged to put your fingers between the door and the rest of the body of the vehicle. On the inside of the vehicle, you are treated to a simplistic but very sleek and modern design, the star of which is obviously this 15.5-inch touchscreen display. Now you will use this to control all aspects of the vehicle, from vehicle settings to driver profiles to driver modes. At the bottom, you will notice the one analog feature about this vehicle, and that is the volume control knob. Again, this came back to something that Ford customers just wanted, something tangible. They said, let me feel it, let me control that. And I have to agree, the head units in both of my vehicles are aftermarket. It replaced the knob with buttons, and while it's still tactile, it just doesn't have that same kind of response or quickness to it, especially while you're driving. If you're trying to pay attention on the road, it's nice just to grab the knob, give it a spin, and do what you need to do. Also, I like that it's not a touch style. That's something that is in my wife's vehicle, and I hate getting into it and realizing the volume has been left up too loud, or her phone disconnects as I back out of the driveway and my ears are blasted with static, and I'm just over there swiping the volume like a speed dater on Tinder. So this is something that I can appreciate. It's a nice little touch. Inside your drive modes, you will have Whisper, Engage, and Unbridled. Unbridled being a bit of a horse pun there. And as you can imagine, Whisper is going to give you your more conservative, economical mode to be in, while Unbridled would be better suited for your more spirited driving. See what I did there? Spirit, as in Spirit, Stallion of the Cimarron. The 2002 cinematic masterpiece starring Matt Damon. It was a classic of an entire generation. Where was I? Oh yes, the drive modes. So upon selecting a different drive mode, there will be other sensory indications that something has changed. The ambient lighting will change, for example, and so will the graphics on your display, although that only happens while the vehicle is actually moving. Inside the drive modes, you can also enable the one pedal or two pedal drive mode. The one pedal being as long as you're pressing on the gas, you're accelerating. As soon as you lift off, you effectively apply the brake. While I could get used to it, I prefer the two pedal. It's just a little bit more intuitive for me. You can also turn on the propulsion sound. It's not the same as a sound tube, but it will just give you a little bit of an engine noise, and it will give somebody the feeling that they're actually driving, they're actually moving. Sometimes that complete absence of sound is just a little bit too unnerving, a little too unnatural for people. So that helps a little bit if that's your thing. And one more feature of the big display there is going to be the backup and 360 cameras. I think the rear view camera in particular is very good. It's nice and crisp. It's a large display. And then with the 360 camera at top, it's really nice for backing into places, especially backing into places blind. I used this last night coming into my garage and just navigating the walls and things. It was super helpful. So thumbs up for the cameras. Now, the graphic changing display is something that you will notice lacking from the interior of a Tesla, for example. Something that Ford undoubtedly added as a bit of a one-upper. Just in front of that, you have the steering wheel, which is very good to hold in your hands. It's a small diameter, which I like. The steering itself is very lightweight and responsive. It has curves and contours to it to make it very comfortable at both the 10 and 2 and 9 and 3 driving positions, and it has a little bit of a cushion or a squish to it, which sounds weird, but it's actually kind of nice, although I would prefer for it to be a tad more firm than it is, but I can see that for daily driving and for anti-fatigue, it totally makes sense to have it on there. Then sliding into the back seat like a prom night hopeful, we see that there is plenty of leg room. I am just north of 6 feet tall. I left the driver's seat in my driving position, and I could sit back here for a while and still be comfortable. Look up and you see the absolutely massive panoramic glass roof, and while it does not darken or open like maybe on some other models, it does help to make the whole interior feel a lot more spacious because of all that natural light that comes pouring in. Moving on to cargo space, you have what equates to a pretty decent sized footprint, although you are lacking a bit when it comes to height. So some of your smaller boxes or stand-up items, you might be a little bit more tasked to get to fit. Now you can mediate that a bit by dropping the floor down a few inches and gain some room that way. And of course the back seats can lay flat as well. But being that this is an EV, of course we have access to the front as well. So up here at the front, and this gets me to what is my first kind of real gripe about the vehicle. So looking at the long sweeping hood, you may initially think that you've got a pretty decent amount of space in here, and while it's not horrible, I feel like it's deceiving. I feel like you would have expected it to be a little bit more than there is. Now, it's perfectly big enough for my camera bag, for example, but this is something that I guess I was just hoping that there would be a little bit more of. But that pales in comparison to how you actually gain access to this. There is no button, there is no release, there is no lever, anything like that to actually open this frunk. You cannot do it with a button on your fob. Instead, the only way to open it is with this lever that's inside the cabin, which you have to pull twice. It then pops the frunk up and you can open it from there. Now, given that you can figure approximately half the time you're coming up here is because you have something in your hands that you're trying to load into it, it just seems like a hassle to have to go into the cabin every time, pull that lever just to gain access here. If I'm holding a box or bags of groceries or anything really, I don't want to have to set that down first to come get to it. Now, I don't know if they were going for more of a hood release kind of feel, because essentially that's what's going on here. But again, being that you wouldn't load a bag of groceries into your engine bay, but you would in a frunk, I just feel like it might be a bit of an oversight. Then it comes to closing it. To get this thing closed, you have to put a fair amount of oomph and muscle behind it. Otherwise, it will get closed about halfway, and you can't lift it back up without pulling that lever again. And so what you're left with is either pulling that lever or doing what I call the Porsche approach, which is to just press down over where the latch would be to latch it closed, although you don't have a nice pretty emblem for reference. So now onto the driving portion of the video, which we will be doing in unbridled mode for one reason only. I think you know what that is. So let's go. Okay. So not overwhelming, not like throw your head back, you know, scare you type of speed, but it's not just your normal SUV either. So I'll say this, you can get in trouble with this probably pretty quick, I would imagine so. Um, but even at speed, feels nice and planted. Everything feels light though, like nimble, not floaty, but agile, which is weird. I mean, it's an SUV, right? It's big, but you know, with all of the battery packs and everything down low, the center of gravity of this thing is pretty comparable to that of, you know, I don't want to say the real Mustang, a normal Mustang, you know what I mean, a coupe or something like that. So it's not unfathomable that it, you know, can handle and it can squat and move. So we'll see if we can do another little pull here. Yeah, I mean, I don't know quite how fast that was to 60, but fast enough, I'll say that. And so that kind of brings me to, you know, the elephant in the room that I might have kind of been dancing around at this point. Is this a Mustang? Well, technically speaking, because Ford said so, yeah, it is a Mustang. But I get why people say it's not a real Mustang. I've said the same thing. You know, coming from having a big, loud, lopey Mustang, you know, this being an SUV and being electric, you know, there's a lot of backlash as to why they called it that. Similar to why they brought back the Lightning as a crew cab electric truck. So part of that is, I think, riding on coattails that the brand has previously built up, trying to kind of cash in on that namesake and that recognizability of that. But I think part of it too is, I think the big problem with the Mustang Mach-E fitting into the Mustang hole is that people are thinking that it is an SUV that they call the Mustang, when really, I think a better way to think about it is this is a Mustang that the trim level just so happens to be an EV SUV. And a lot of you might not agree with that, or just think that that sounds like you're tricking yourself, and you kind of are. But if you think about it, that's what it is. It's a Mustang Mach-E. Mach-E designating that it's electric and that this specific kind is an SUV. Now, I think as long as they continue to always offer the coupe and the convertible versions, it won't be as big of a deal. We have wagons like the CTSV and CTSV wagon. We have shooting brakes that have been created and imagined time and time again. So this really isn't all that far removed from such a concept. And so, you know, at the end of the day, is it a Mustang? I don't know. Is it a good car? Is it fun? Is it sporty? Would I own one? Yeah. Maybe not for me, but for my wife, for sure. I'd be stoked if she had something like this. It would be practical for her. I would still have fun in it. So yeah, I think it's a solid buy. I think that we are just on the verge of EV technology. I don't think we're there yet. You know, there's this huge push for everyone to go electric vehicles. The infrastructure is just not there yet. Battery technology is just not there yet. But there's a long way to go, and I think that it will be promising. I think the best thing for right now is to continue offering a few of these vehicles like this, let everyone dip their toe in the water, and to do more stuff where hybrid technology is used to supplement internal combustion. You know, not take over, but add to. You know, continue to get more out of the experience. And all in all, at the end of the day, I think it's a really good time to be an enthusiast. I think it's a really good time to be driving cars in general. You know, you have a lot of options. There's a lot of competition between the manufacturers. And yeah, Ford, you did something good here. I think compared to something like a Tesla, I feel like Tesla is good at making technology. Ford is good at making cars. Now, whether you agree with that statement or not, that's what they do. They're an automotive company. They've been doing it a long time. They listen to their customers. They know how to make a vehicle that will work, that people will enjoy, that will sell. And I think that's what they've done here. And, you know, I think looks-wise, it's a very pretty vehicle. I think they did try to do some styling after the Mustang Coupe, but I think SUV-wise, I don't put it in the same realm as like a Tesla. Maybe a little bit from the front, but it looks to me more like, you know, a Jaguar or something. I think it punches above its weight class. I think it has a lot of features and things that are a good bang for your buck. And all in all, I do think it's a good car. So thanks for joining me on this little review here, and I will see you guys in the next one.
It's crazy.